Our top focus this hour, Prime Minister Modi and US President Joe Biden held their first in-person talks at the White House in what was the biggest bilateral meeting of Prime Minister Modi's trip to the United States. The Biden-Modi camaraderie was on full display throughout the press briefing. The leaders shared a light-hearted banter about the Biden surname in India and recollected their last meetings from 2014 to 2016 and 2016, pardon me. Apart from light-hearted moments, the leaders, of course, spoke about their appreciation for each other and the strong relationship between India and America.
I think that the relationship between India and the United States, the largest democracies in the world, is destined to be stronger, closer, and tighter, and I think it can benefit the whole world. And I think that's begun to come to pass, and today we're launching a new chapter in the history of U.S.-Indian ties and taking on some of the toughest challenges we faced together, starting with a shared commitment to ending the COVID pandemic.
Now, sources tell WION that Prime Minister Modi and President Biden's bilateral meeting lasted for 1.5 hours. And instead of the scheduled 1 hour, such was the depth of the topics covered, that Biden said that next time they meet, they should schedule a discussion for over 2 days. And Prime Minister Modi also signed the visitors' book in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. On the agenda for this visit were three main issues: COVID-19, climate and the Quad. The shared interests and the common goals of both the nations are expected to be further enhanced after this bilateral meet.
That chair is occupied by the Vice President of the United States.
भारत और अमेरिका के बीच ट्रेड का अपना महत्व है और इस दशक में ट्रेड के क्षेत्र में भी हम एक दूसरे को काफी पूरक हो सकते हैं। बहुत सी चीजें हैं जो अमेरिका के पास है, जो भारत को जरूरत है। बहुत सी चीजें भारत के पास है जो अमेरिका के काम आ सकती हैं। तो ट्रेड भी इस दशक का एक बहुत बड़ा क्षेत्र रहेगा।
And in a tweet after the bilateral meet, Modi called the meeting outstanding. He said, I'm quoting here, "I had an outstanding meeting with President Biden. His leadership on critical global issues is commendable. We discussed how India and the United States will further scale up cooperation in different spheres and work together to overcome key challenges like COVID-19 and climate change."
और राष्ट्रपति जी जैसे कुछ विषयों का आपने उल्लेख किया, ये सारे विषय बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण हैं, भारत के लिए भी महत्वपूर्ण हैं। और आपने पदभार संभालने के बाद चाहे कोविड हो, क्लाइमेट हो या क्वाड हो, हर एक में एक बहुत ही यूनिक इनिशिएटिव लिया है। और मैं समझता हूँ ये जो आपका इनिशिएटिव है आने वाले दिनों में बहुत बड़ा प्रभाव पैदा करेगा। और मुझे विश्वास है कि आज की हमारी बातचीत में भी इन सारे विषयों को हम विस्तार से विचार विमर्श करके हम कैसे साथ चल सकते हैं, हम एक दूसरे के लिए भी और दोनों मिलकर दुनिया के लिए भी क्या कुछ पॉजिटिव कर सकते हैं। मुझे विश्वास है कि आपके नेतृत्व में आज की चर्चा बहुत सार्थक रहेगी।
And for more on this story, Mr. Spencer Krishley is joining us live from California. Mr. Krishley is the former communication advisor for Barack Obama's presidential campaign, also an author. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, the shared interests and the common goals of both the nations are expected to be further enhanced post this bilateral. How do you assess the ties between the two nations evolving now?
Well, I'm really glad to hear Prime Minister Modi describing the meeting as outstanding. It really does seem to have been outstanding by all appearances, looking at it from the outside. It's, I think, also just a very good sign to see the detail and depth that went into the talks on these crucial issues such as COVID and climate change and security and trade and education, and as well as what seemed to be the genuine rapport between the two leaders. So I think all in all, it just seemed like a very successful visit for both countries.
Right. Also, what are some of the areas of cooperation that now we're looking at with regards to the Indo-Pacific and the Afghanistan takeover by the Taliban?
Well, this, of course, is part of a shift towards the Indo-Pacific region that is very important to President Biden and was important to President Obama as well, but President Obama was not able to accomplish this shift to the extent that he wanted to because of other issues appearing in other parts of the world, including, of course, the Middle East. And then under President Trump, he stepped away from some of the regional agreements and pursued his famous America First policy. I think now under President Biden, this shift towards the Indo-Pacific region is able to proceed as we have really hoped for quite a while, since so much of the future appears to be located in that part of the world.
Right. Also, let's just go over some of the key issues on the agenda here, that is COVID-19 and climate change. Also, of course, the Quad, like you just mentioned. Now, what can we expect on these fronts going forward?
It's very heartening to see the cooperation on the development of an enormous number of vaccines, for example, in fighting the COVID epidemic, because India has been making such progress for such a long time in technology as well as in economic growth. It's well positioned to supply vaccines, not just for its own population, but to help meet the global demand. And I think that's a tremendously important sign, because we all need to recognize that pandemics will characterize the future to a great degree. It's one of the risks of being more and more connected around the world. Just like we have shared information, shared trade, we'll have shared viruses. So I think this is a very important partnership here. Climate change is the same thing. We all live with the same climate. We can't retreat within our own borders and just enjoy our own climate and think we can only protect ourselves. We simply must, for our own survival, as well as the survival of the world at large, cooperate on climate change. So I'm glad to see these are the sorts of priorities that are getting the focus.
Right. Mr. Spencer Gresham, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us on this broadcast with your insights.
My pleasure.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.